Hello, everyone. This is Josh Vision, and I'm here to give my season 1, episode 3 review of The Witcher. So, in this episode, a lot of things happen, but especially in this specific episode, I think this is probably the best episode so far out of the first three, and so much crap happens in this. So, obviously, with the way the storyline is presented, even though there's three main storylines, they're all taking place during different times. So you got some in the past, some in the present, some in the future, so on and so forth. So let's start mainly with The Witcher and Yennefer storyline, and then we'll get to Ciri's like near the end of this review. So basically, like when it comes to The Witcher basically he's at a brothel, and after he has some good love making with the prostitute whore, he's told by her essentially that there was a Witcher a month ago whom basically went to this town in Temeria, I believe, and he apparently got like 3,000 something florins or something like that. He got a great deal of money, but instead of doing what the Witchers usually do and get the money and kill the beast, he left with the money. So the townspeople are pissed off, and apparently these townspeople from Temeria, they have been attacked by this monster for quite a while, quite a few years, and it seems that nothing, no matter what kind of ideas they come up with, they can't stop it. So the Witcher decides to take this challenge and go to Temeria to kill this beast. So he goes there and he meets these miners, and they talk about back like probably a couple decades before, the current timeline, how a Nilfgaardian king was usurped by someone due to him not caring about the people and treating them like crap, and they're thinking about doing it like their own version of that with their current king. And basically the Witcher's like observing this. He interjects and he's like, listen, what's that really gonna do? I'll be the guy to kill your beast. I'll charge you basically a third of the original price and apologize from my guild to your guild. So when they're about to make the deal, here comes Lord Ostrit, I believe, one of the king's right-hand men, and he basically sends the Witcher on his way. But the Witcher basically is kind of saved, or I wouldn't really say saved actually, because like four of the men that was supposed to take him out of the town is killed by this sorcerer. Or actually, yeah, she called herself like a sorcerer, but the Witcher's like, listen, no, you're a witch. Just admit you're a witch. And her name is Triss Modula or something. I'll just call her Triss. So anyways, Triss takes the Witcher to her lair, essentially. She talks about what's been going on with this monster and the fear of these townspeople. She mentions the king's sister, which I felt was, kind of interesting, and how she was buried, in a very quick kind of way. And usually when someone's buried, especially of royal blood, there's like a long procession, something along the lines. So anyways, we find out that this supposed animal is actually a Striga, and that it's a female. And the Witcher was able to do that when he actually overlooked his former Witcher's body. The guy who originally a month ago, which the whore mentioned, had supposedly took the money and left. He actually was killed in battle. But Triss, the current sorceress woman, she didn't want the people to know that a Witcher was killed by this Striga. So she basically just let the story go on that he just took the money and ran, which the Witcher, the current one, Geralt did not really appreciate. But either way, so while we're stuck in this, let's get to Yennefer's storyline. So with Yennefer, her and Istrid, they're really excited about their promotions in a way to the next level of their craft. So I believe that Istrid is being promised a position in the council of the chaplains, the sorcerer's brotherhood essentially. And that means he go to the continent pretty much anytime he wants for the most part. But I believe he's like a part-timer. But it's still a tremendous like position. And I believe Yennefer, she wants to go to Aiden. Her goal when going to Aiden is like going to Aiden and never returning back home. I think she just wants to be done with the stuff. But unfortunately for her, that's kind of overruled. And I believe Aiden is a part of the Sintra kingdom. Yeah, the Sintra, kingdom. And during this meeting, which Gigabor is a part of, there's a lot that's discussed. So we find out that basically the king, obviously this is taking place in the past, so the king of this time, he's dying, but people think that's going to make it easier for people, like the people of the council, like the sorcerers and all that stuff, easier for them to go back into like the courts of the Sintra. But they don't want that. The Sintras are opposed to them, just like the king. And I believe Skigabor believes that maybe his daughter will be more relenting, but Tessia, the one who's basically the main teacher and mentor for Yennefer, she says that the daughter, Queen Calanthe, who's basically the grandmother of Ciri in the current storyline, she's just like her father, just as stubborn. And we're told about Nilfgaardian, and that the king is kind of an a-hole. He's young, he's immature, and he spends his money basically on women, and alcohol, instead of actually helping the people with food and actually trying to make the kingdom a more productive, place, especially with the economy. And apparently, one of the leaders on the council, his niece, isn't doing her job of trying to get him to that level of being responsible, so on and so forth. So he's kind of dissed by that, by Tessia and by Skigabor to a certain degree. So Skigabor mentions the fact, I believe he asks Tessia actually, what about her project pupil, Yennefer? And she's like, what about Yennefer? And he blurts out the fact that Yennefer is actually of part elf blood. And since that's the case, she can't go to Aiden or basically Sintra due to her elf blood, no matter how little it is. So that pisses off Tessia extremely. And Skigabor, as we know from the first time we met him in episode 1, he's just a slime ball. He doesn't give a freak. So the council takes a vote of where she should go. So they want to send her, I believe, to the place where Fergus is at, I believe. King Fergus, which is Nilfgaardian, I believe. Or some other place. But it's definitely not Aiden, if I remember correctly. So when Yennefer hears this, she's rightfully pissed off. She's like, listen, when she storms into Tessia's room, she's like, listen, I trusted you, and you're supposed to be the chaplain or something, like the main itch in here, and you got overturned by a council. She was like, yeah, I only have so much power, and I did not tell them your secret. So Yennefer, once she hears this, she believes her, and she's like, wait, if you didn't tell, then who did? Then 1 + 1 = Istrid. Yes, Istrid. So when the initiation thing is happening, which I believe is supposed to help with enchanting some of the new sorceress women, and something that Yennefer obviously wanted. While this is happening, she's nowhere to be found, and Ishtar tries to find her, and Yennefer is pissed off. She's like, listen, you told the council my secret, which I trusted you with. He was like, listen, it was something that Skigabor wanted to know, and I didn't know he was going to use it to that extent for his own benefit. I'm sorry. And then she's like, no, you're not a man. I mean, a man speaks his desires out. He doesn't hide behind them. And then that's when they had this really interesting back and forth, in which it makes clear their philosophies, because he wants her to basically join him, in his endeavor. Like, listen, we don't have to go to court. We don't have to go this or that. You could be by my side while I'm part of the council. Join me. We go to the continent we go all over the continent, doing research, so on and so forth. She's like, no, I don't want to be your handmaiden. I want to be my own person. I want to do something that I'm interested in doing. And I lost complete trust in you, And then I believe at one point he's like, listen, you're just mad. No, I think he said actually that victimhood does not really match your colors, because I believe she said to him that you believe in this whole romantic ideology about romance and love and all that stuff, but the world that I live in, the world that's actually like the real legit world, is cruel, unpredictable, and harsh. So you have to grow up, not me. So when I mentioned the fact that he said that victim is not her color, she said neither is heroism for him. Basically saying that he likes to play hero, but he's really not, and he doesn't even understand the concept of it. So he says and retort basically that, listen, you know what you're mad at? You're mad at the fact that no matter how much power you get, or if you are successful trying to get beautiful, you will never truly be beautiful. Never. You'll never be fully beautiful, and you'll never have any power. And that's what pisses you off. And if you are able to do it, you'll never feel like you deserve it. And then we see her give him this death stare. And then she walks off to, I believe, the artist, who early in the episode was the one making her dress and all that stuff, and talking about how he's going to fix her up. So she basically tells him, listen, Are you a man or you're not a man? Like, or do the council have your cock, your manhood? I need you to fix me up and prove just how much of an artist you really are. So let's have a pause here, right here, and go back to the Witcher storyline. So with the Witcher and Triss, they confront the king, and we are told basically a little bit about a minute or so into the scene, once the Witcher gets everybody, out of the room besides the king, that the king and his sister has some type of weird relationship. And that translated into this Striga, who was originally a girl, obviously, basically the birth of her daughter. Now, I think the Witcher, if I remember correctly, he tried to figure out if the king had placed a curse on his daughter due to the whole incestuous gig. But the king sort of kicks him out before he could go any further. So while this is happening, later in the episode, we have the Witcher and Triss basically meeting up with each other again and trying to do their own little investigation. And once they go into the room, like the old room of the king and his sister, they find some damning information in regards to how this curse even occurred and who put it on them. Well, put it on the girl, the Striga. So we find out there was actually Lord Ostrich who did it. And he did it because of the fact that he was jealous of the fact that Ada, who was actually like the name of the king's sister, was in love with the king for the most part. Because besides that, he was saying, well, what if it was rape, What if it wasn't consensual, But you just told us kind of BS. You get the gist that there was at least a mutual attraction, even though it was sick, between the king and his sister. And that their mother did not like it at all. So I believe the Witcher asks him, okay, what's the cure? What's the incantation so we can end this crap? And Lord Ostrich's like, no, I want the king to suffer because of what he did, like the hell he put his sister through. And basically, being honest, the fact that his sister loved him more than me, so I'm pissed. I want him to suffer. So the Witcher don't have the time for this, so he knocks the dude out. So the next scene, we have the Witcher basically trying to get back into the town, I believe, or the castle. And he sees like a plethora of soldiers, and then the king is clad in armor as well, and he comes out, and we have this very kind of intense kind of heart to heart, and she's like, listen, I feel bad for you, or I envy you, Witcher, because you don't feel love like humans do, and I tried not to love my sister, but I just couldn't help it, and are you going to kill and he couldn't even say the words, he couldn't even say his daughter. He said, are you going to kill her? He's like, well, I intend not to. I feel there's a way I can actually bring her back, to normal. But if I'm not able to, here, he gives him like a trinket or something. Whether he survives, or he doesn't. It's for his daughter. So after that, we see that Lord Ostrich is tied, and he finally admits to the Witcher how he was able to curse the girl, which was actually intended for him to curse the king, Forset. Forset was his name, actually. The king's name is Forset. But it got brought to the daughter, obviously. So he mentioned that there was a woman who was hiding from the Brotherhood, and she told him how to do the incantation, and that he had a roll in lamb's blood, from dawn to sunrise, something along them lines. So as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh wait, that might have been Yennefer, years previously, which brings us, to the Yennefer storyline that happened not long after, in which there's this ball happening. I believe it's happening in Nilfgaard, actually, because it would make sense, because the king is with one of the chaplain's nieces, and even though they're dancing, he seems not bored, but kind of indifferent. And everyone is there. Tessia's there. Istrid's there. I believe Skigabor's there. One of the black sorcery guys are there. Since he's the uncle of the niece, whatever, so on and so forth. And we see a young Forset, I believe, and his sister with their mother, who's clearly disturbed by their connection, obviously, like anyone would be. So, while this ball's going on, Yennefer appears. And I'm telling you, Yennefer that transformation worked. She looks hot as hell. Like, Jesus Christ. She went from like 0 to 100 or to 1,000. She's like freaking like beautiful and gorgeous. Like, Jesus. And everyone's is like shocked by this. Tessia, Skigabor, everyone. And King Fergus, he's like, oh, who are you? And he's like, you know what, forget that. Want to have this dance. And they actually dance with each other. And the niece of one of the members of the chaplain is rightfully pissed off as she storms off. And that makes that guy pissed. And Tessia is just looking on, kind of with a combination of, okay, why'd you do that? But also impressed and proud of her. And Skigabor is seething, like enraged, even more than the other chaplain guy was. So, yeah. And to end the Witcher thing, we have the Witcher actually fighting this Skigabor. And it was a very intense battle, but he's actually able to bring the girl back to normal. Even though he got stabbed in the neck for his actions, he didn't kill the girl like he promised her father / king. So he wakes up and he's basically, being healed by Triss, and she mentions the fact that the Witcher thinks too much in black and white, and that she doesn't understand why all he lives by is by money, and killing, and that there's more to his life than that, and that she feels he will find it very soon. Which connects us to the last part of the episode, in which we see Ciri basically waking up in the forest, cold as crap, winter, and she sees basically like a pond or something of like dead bodies. So that's how the episode ends. Thank you guys for watching this long ass review of The Witcher Season 1 Episode 3. If I missed anything, please write it down below in the comment section. Adios and have a good one.